Hey everybody, how are you doing? Happy Halloween. We are not in costume today, but we are talking about a super exciting topic connecting people, enterprises, and things everywhere around the world at Hughes with Randy Anders. Randy, how are you?
I'm great. I almost wore orange, so I didn't think about that. But yeah, no costume today. I'm great. Thank you for
No
letting me join
costumes
you.
for adults, but thanks for having us here. And this is, this topic of enterprise connectivity and satellite communications is a really red hot one. So I'm really excited to dive deep with you today. Before that, maybe introduce yourself, Randy, your role at Hughes, and a little bit about your background.
Sure. Thank you, Evan. My name's Randy. I actually I've been in Hughes for a little over 5 years, but my journey started back in the '80s, actually as a enlisted man in the Marine Corps. And it was
Thank
interesting.
you.
I wound up finding myself in RF communications radios, which back then they just put you in things you didn't ask to do certain things. So, um, and likely little did I know that I'd wind up having a career kind of in wireless and RF communications. So, I was in the till about 1990, got out, did some local area network stuff for a couple years, and then a friend of mine actually introduced me to GE SpaceNet to get into the satellite business, which I kind of remember laughing and saying, "I don't know anything about satellites," and he said, you know about routing and about communications." So I took the job, and it was been a worldwide journey for 25 years. So worked there for 5 years, went to Intelsat, who is a vendor.
Mm.
Um, to Hughes, worked there for 14 years at the satellite operator who wound up providing Hughes with satellite connectivity and services. So I've always known about Hughes. And then in around 2017, 18, Hughes started talking to me about coming over and running their sales organization here on the enterprise side. And I thought it was a great opportunity. And I'm happy I joined. And I've actually born and raised in Maryland, so I've always been around the Hughes facility as well, driving up and down the road to DC. But I moved to Florida here a couple years ago.
Well done. Well, I wish I were in Florida now. It's a little chilly in Boston. But, Hughes has had an amazing evolution over 50 years. Quite a storied company. Tell us about Hughes now and that journey. You haven't seen all 50 years of it, but tell us where we are right now at Hughes.
Yeah, so I've known Hughes for about half of it, so around
Okay.
25 years. Actually, when I was actually at GE SpaceNet, Hughes was a competitor. So I competed against Hughes and was always an admirer from afar, saying that's a well-run class organization. So Hughes started, of course, back in the 70s, but in the 80s, their big thing with the first satellite network was Walmart. So they started the whole innovative VSAT communications of connecting remote locations back to headquarters so they could do inventory, credit card
Mm.
transactions and just, run their business real time versus before it was all kind of, hey, we sold this and you'd send things back and forth through other communications. Um, in the 2000s with the event of DSL and lower speed wireline connectivity, Hughes was like, well, you still need some of our innovative technologies to make these networks work well on back on dial-up lines and DSL and really small performing lines. So Hughes moved into this broadband aggregation and being a managed service provider in the broadband world, doing broadband integration, actually designing, implementing, wiring up networks and putting them out. And also, of course, everything is all secure. So when people put their credit cards into any transaction, they want to make sure their stuff is secure. So everything I talk about today is done with a enterprise mentality of it being a secure link and access back to headquarters or through the internet. So
Yeah.
then it's interesting because you mentioned satellite earlier. I just add that it's come full circle. So now the big exciting thing in satellite is LEO, low Earth orbit satellites.
Mm.
And so we actually have our own product that we're launching here in a month or so. And so we've gone from satellite to what I would call broadband aggregation and wireline, and of course wireless in there in the middle from 4G to 5G. We'll talk about that a little bit, and then back to satellite. So it's come full circle.
Wow, that's interesting. So, just to be clear, I mean, Hughes Net, the consumer business that many people probably confuse you for, is not your focus. You're focused on enterprise and managed services and being a broadband aggregator and doing all kinds of cool applications for B2B. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. So HughesNet is run by colleagues in another group at Hughes, and
Hmm.
it's a big organization that does, over 1 million subscribers. And actually, if you looked in the press lately, they just launched the largest satellite connectivity in July. And so that services are actually going to come online here in Q1 as well. So that division is looking for immense growth in the consumer division. But you're right. I actually came in and I run what's the other enterprises, which so there's dedicated services, which we do for like airlines. We'll talk about that a little bit
Hmm.
more. I also do large enterprise for like big box retailers, home improvement stores, pharmacies, vitamin stores, clothing
Wow.
stores. We also go down to franchisees. So we do retail petroleum locations all the way down to like franchisees. Someone owns 5, 10 locations. They can actually contact Hughes, and we actually are authorized by the corporations to provide them services so we can sign them up. And then, of course, we have some traditional things in the energy and industrial areas where you're doing infrastructure and at real remote locations. So and I would say we also have a government division that is not under my purview that does federal, state, local jurisdictions in the government. So there's 3 segments: consumer, myself, and then the government.
Interesting. So walk us through a typical customer scenario, maybe like a retailer or quick serve without naming the customer. How do you connect and integrate, those kind of locations? What's your secret sauce
Yeah.
at Hughes?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're really a consultative
Mm,
service provider. We literally go in and we try to solve business problems. I mean, you hear that a lot,
mhm,
but we actually sit down with them and say, what are you trying to do? Are you constrained with IT resources? Are you constrained because of your engagement with connectivity partners and you want to, you don't want to call 300 different vendors and see what they have at that location?
mm,
Do you want to is security your main thing, and then you work backwards to see how you can do connectivity and manage the services. So we go in and look at it at a broad scale, and literally can have 400 partners in our broadband aggregation. So
oh,
we
wow.
actually we will come into a customer. I'll give you an example of a pharmaceutical, or I'm sorry, a pharmacy had 2,500 locations. They actually wanted really secure and very high performance network and availability, because of course when you call in to get your prescriptions or you talking to a pharmacist or healthcare, you want to be a secure network. So they actually ask us, what can you do for us? We said, look, we can come in and bring 2 kind of firewalls. We call them CPEs, customer premise equipment that basically can make the smart decisions of, okay, I'm going to use the cable circuit or the fiber circuit here for my primary connection. And then with the SD-WAN, technology, that Hughes can pick from a few vendors that we use. We actually say at this point, you go back to a 4G or a 5G backup, and some
Mm,
of them have a third path to actually, okay, I'm really had a problem, and now I want to move credit card transactions and continue customers to move, but I won't use my Wi-Fi and things like that. So that's all done with a secure, again, all the way back to PCI compliance of, secure credit card swipes and cybersecurity, that somebody comes in and plugs something in or gets on the Wi-Fi, it's all secure. And then what we also can do is we do digital signage and digital media, either customer facing, where it's actually for menus and for end of caps at a grocery store, or break room TV, which we do a large home improvement store, a large retail department store, and we also do another grocery chain, national grocery chain, that we do back of house break room TV. So basically internal messaging and employee retention. So that's the
wow.
gamut of all of our portfolio. And we will come in and talk through that journey and sometimes we start with cybersecurity because they want security and work backwards, or do other service for them, or we do the connectivity and work to to expand. But it's a big portfolio of products and services.
It is indeed. And this is not the Hughes that I remember in the satellite business 10, 15 years ago. Wow, that's quite an interesting offer. And so you're looking at different kinds of technology depending on, what's fit for purpose. It could be, satellite LEO, GEO, it could be LTE, it could be 5G, whatever transport's required, and to deliver
Correct.
customer value. How does that work exactly? How have you brought together all these kinds of network services?
Well, I think Hughes is an engineering driven company, and there's a lot of very, very bright people at
Mm,
Hughes. So, we come to the approach of how do we, again, look at a problem. And I'll give you an
mm,
example of an aero customer. So, airplanes and getting on the internet on airplanes, of course, is what people want to be like. They're sitting in their living room, which now you're traveling at 39,000 feet at 500 miles an hour. So satellite was, of course, inherently the kind of way to go because you don't have an Ethernet cable dragging along. So, but one of the biggest pieces of that puzzle is the antenna that's on the aircraft. And of course, aircraft manufacturers look at weight, aerodynamics, and so if you can make something smaller, more form fitting, and still get good performance, that's very attractive to the airline client and ultimately for a customer experience. And so it's been in the public that we worked with GoGo business
mm.
division. So we're actually putting our ESA, I'm using another three letter acronym. Sorry.
We
So
love
there's
those in
LEO,
telecom. Three,
there's
four, five
LEO,
letters. Yeah.
lower Earth orbit, and there's ESA, which is electronically steerable antenna. So as everyone
Wow.
usually thinks about, antennas usually wind up pointing and moving to keep track of the satellite. Now there's actually just an electronic beam that tracks the satellite and transfers to another satellite and moves. So we actually went to them and said, we have a product here that we can develop and manufacture, which we are, of an ESA to put on smaller form factors. On a large body 737, you have more space, but if you go to a more business jet or regional jets, the
Mm.
fuselage is smaller, so you need more smaller form factor. So we actually went to them, worked on a solution together with partners that we have that are long-term partners, and came up with a solution and are moving forward. And actually, we've been very successful lately, and I think there's another airline announcement coming out in the next couple of days. So,
Wow.
so
That's some
that's an
amazing
example of
engineering.
yeah, that's an example of Hughes engineering. And I'll give you another side on the smaller side, like a franchisee or a small person owns 20 stores. It's a pretty big business to him, but he actually wants to know that the network is secure, that the power at his location is good, and actually what's the broadband. A lot of times the problem is like you have at home, you have problems with your internet, you unplug your Ethernet or your cable modem and things clear up. Hughes again there also came up with a device that we actually put in. We call it the active power edge. And so we put this device at the facility and people plug everything into it. And we can monitor at the actual cable performance or whatever's plugged into it, wireless performance as well. And if we see something happening, we can make the decision through SD-WAN to go to a different transport to keep the customer experience okay. And we actually use AI ops, and this is actually a good thing. We actually use AI ops real world, not just on slides, that we can actually see when a device needs to be reset and then program it to be reset overnight. So you don't have to call the store and ask someone, hey, we see there's something going on with the cable modem. We overnight are just going to reset that and recycle the modem. So that's the kind of two examples of Hughes technology trying to solve real world problems.
That's fantastic. I had no idea you guys went so deep in those areas. And, we still have quite a digital divide in this country, even more so around the world. And particularly in, B2B and small businesses, we have a lot of regions that are underserved. So I assume that's where your, capability in satellite really comes to the fore.
Sure, absolutely. And I would say satellite and also wireless now because the
Hmm.
wireless build outs are becoming more open and accessible. So what we will do is, I'll give you an example here of a small and growing businesses. So again, I won't give you the name, but there's these cookie companies that are, I got two daughters. They love these specialty cookies. And so these stores are popping up all over the place to buy these cookies that cost, more than I would think a cookie would, but everyone really likes them. And so they're growing fast. I mean, people are signing up hundreds of franchisees for these locations, and they're trying to put them not in New York City. They're putting them out a little further in suburbia and a little further out where, real hardline connectivity can be tough. So what we did with that customer is we actually talked to them about, we could actually put in, because they're trying to grow faster than they can put in a cable circuit or other kind of broadband circuit. We basically say, hey, we can go ahead and put a 4G circuit in there, or 5G, that we actually can absolutely put in with all the different carriers, and actually put a 5G device antenna outside the location to assure good connectivity, or a satellite connectivity that we can put in days, because we've been doing that for decades, get the business up and running versus waiting for, a launch day to get, connectivity and everything else. And then come back later and maybe supplement that location with another device for connectivity, another hybrid transport, to actually enhance their connectivity over time. So I agree with you. The small, medium emerging businesses are pushing the envelope of how fast they want to grow and where they want to be. And Hughes is, well positioned to help them get going.
Interesting. So, I learned that you guys are a managed service provider. I didn't know that before our chat, and that's a very busy arena. Lots of MSPs in different areas of niches and verticals. So, how do you differentiate yourself in this world of managed services? What's your unique sort of selling point from a sales standpoint?
Yeah. So I think we're well respected in the industry there with Gartner and some of the analysts and everything. If you look Hughes up, we actually place very, very well in that market. But where I think we actually shine is our total solution, from the consultation of design and planning, implementation, which I'll give you an example. The 2,500 pharmacy chain, we actually put in 5 months. They wanted to move their technology, get it done. We said, fine, we can do 2,500 locations in 5 months. It was completed last year in the first half of the year. And I think after the implementation is done, it's support and maintenance, and actually the health of the network, and having quarterly reports to their IT staff or their executive leadership team of, here's how the network's performing. Hey, things have moved from 4G to 5G. Do we want to, move the backup service up to the next tier of service? I feel that, carriers that we use, and we work with them and collaborate on networks, their focus is the network. And I don't believe that being a full service managed service provider is their focus. And I think that's where we take real great pride in that, being a little bit smaller, we're a little bit nimble. And we actually have over 100 customers for over 10 years. And I think that is key to that support. And I'll give our engineers, again, a lot of kudos. I hear sometimes my customers say to me and to my sales team, hey, I feel like those network engineers at Hughes are my staff, because when I have a problem, they will jump in quickly. They determine, hey, this doesn't look like a Hughes problem. And we don't say, well, then don't help them. You know what I mean? And so I think that white glove service is what differentiates us and keeps us up at the leader of the managed service providers.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, I think you guys have seen it all in the communication space, so that certainly helps. What are you excited about the rest of this year? We got Q4 right now. Are you traveling? Any events professionally out there you're excited about, or are you just keeping your head down and working with customers?
Sure. It's Q4, end of the year push. I always tell the sales team, let's get ahead of it this year in Q2 and Q3, so we don't have this large push. In the last 2 years, it's been a big Q4, and I inevitably see the same going. So I'm doing a little less traveling right now, but we get out to, even my sales team is traveling every week, and I do go out all the way down to a regional petroleum show that's here in Fort Lauderdale. I went down a couple months ago to see what's going on in that industry, because if you're there and you're talking to the service providers in that industry that are doing point of sale and the gas dispensers and all those things. You understand what is going on with their need for more infrastructure and network to actually head where Hughes wants to be in our development. And I'd say that's where we've actually upped our game in the 4G to 5G. And so we're actually pitching lots more 5G networks in as the backup connectivity. So
That makes a lot of sense given the, Internet of Things opportunity you must see everywhere in areas like oil and gas where everything's connected online, real time, everywhere, all at once. So I imagine that's quite an opportunity. And Rand, you seem like a really nice guy. Does your inner Marine Corps drill sergeant ever come to surface here with your sales team as a leader, sales leader, or are you
that's
just a nice guy in real life? I mean, what's that?
um,
I haven't.
I my family says I've gotten soft over the years, so I'd say yeah, maybe I've gotten softer. The Marine only comes out every once in a while. I'd say maybe once a quarter or once once a month or so. And some of my sales team will hear it sometimes. They're like, "Oh wow, okay, he's upset." And it's not a bunch of barking. I usually just get kind of okay. That was what I wasn't what I would have
Oh,
done.
come
But
on! You wouldn't be a drill
but
sergeant unless you bark now and then. We'll save that barking for another episode. But yeah, thanks so much for just spending a few minutes. It's been really fascinating getting an update on Hughes. It's been a while since I've talked to anyone, and you guys are really on an interesting trajectory. Can't wait to use the in-flight service as well. I'm really looking
yeah.
forward to that as a
You'll
frequent
hear that
flyer.
announcement in a few days. But Evan, thank you, and thanks for letting me share the Hughes story. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Randy. And thanks everyone for watching. Reach out to Randy or Hughes with any questions
Absolutely.
or comments. Take care, everyone. Happy